Hi, Fiona Chandler. Fiona is a disciplinary water and natural resource management and engagement specialist with Alluvium Consulting based in Townsville. To you.
Thanks, everyone. And I really do feel like a bit of a fraud in this room. Not only am I an applied scientist, but I'm a consultant. And so shout out to my other colleagues that are consultants as well. But I think there's a role for all of us in this space. And I guess I just want to touch on one of the activities that I've been quite passionate about recently, and that is that we've been looking at over 50, there's probably been about 100 projects that have focused on water quality improvement on the Great Barrier Reef. Now, these projects have come from programs that include the Queensland Water Quality Program, the Reef Trust over its last 7 phases, and some of the water quality projects from the Queensland Natural Resource Investment Program. And I think it's important to acknowledge that water quality is actually one of the largest investments across the Great Barrier Reef. So it's quite appropriate and reasonable to ask, what am I getting for my money? And not just to the investors, but to the broader community when it's such a large investment. We've been particularly focused looking at the project scale. So where's that money going to on the ground? But we've also looked a little bit as we roll that up as to say, well, what does that mean at the Reef Trust level or the program scale? So I'm playing in this very awkward space between projects and programs. So let's get to the crux. So in conclusion, people get excited when you start to see that word. I guess I want to acknowledge, and I'm being provocative here, but we found that there's been so much effort by delivery partners, by the people on the ground, the landholders, as they've been part of the delivery partners for all of this investment. So much information is collected, so much knowledge sitting there. Yet when we've come to answer, as a consultant being invited and having the privilege of actually responding to that question of so what impact have these programs had, and answering very specific key evaluation questions with confidence, with credibility, with the evidence to support our statements, we've actually been really challenged in a lot of ways to do that with that credibility or with an evidence base that we feel really strongly about. In answering that question, then, what is the cumulative impact, not just for one project, but across that whole suite of projects aiming to deliver the same outcomes? What is that collective efficiency across projects? What is the enhanced effectiveness we can achieve by learning across that? And getting to that really ultimate game, well, what's the enduring legacy of what is hundreds of millions of dollars worth of investment and effort into the water quality improvement space? So in terms of what we found, there's lots to talk about, but there's really great, strong alignment, well-documented assumptions for what I would refer to as that kind of intermediate, 5-10 year kind of outcomes to the big program logic that does talk to the Reef 2050 plan and the Reef WQIP. I think that those assumptions are getting pretty well documented, and you might challenge there's still more work to do. But what I'm more concerned about is this alignment from the project scale up to the program and what language we're talking about there and how do we actually think about that. We've also found a huge, wide range of frameworks and indicators and metrics across those projects being used. And I'm sure they're all appropriate in their own way. But again, there's a challenge when you want to look across all of those to actually draw some of those conclusions. And first and foremost, there's a lot of data and knowledge that I know is out there that's just really hard to get hold of. So that's challenge number one. And a good example, without pointing the finger on a recent project, we found 4 different sources of pollutant abatement data with 4 different methodologies behind it and 4 different areas of even talking about practice area change of the area the project related to, just by an example. So it begs me to ask the question, as my mother always said, don't ask the question if you don't want to know the answer. In this case, I really do. It makes me ask the questions around, well, are we actually collecting the wrong data, the royal we? Is it too inconsistent? Is it because there's no common language and indicators that we're all talking about? Are we actually being asked too many different questions from too many different organisations? Do we need to collect more data? Do we need to rethink about who's collecting that data? Is it about the landholders or the delivery partners, or is it about research? Is it about First Nations people in this picture? How do we share and access that information? It's always going to be there. How do we provide feedback to those people who are actually collecting it in the first place? Or are we simply asking the wrong question? Are these questions, these big key evaluation questions, realistic? Are they too ambitious? Are they too broad-ranging such that we're trying to trade off depth of understanding versus the breadth? Or am I just not even looking in the right place? And I think after the last 2 days, that's a big part of it as well. There's data out there that we don't even know about. And some of these things around indicators, some of these catchwords are legacy, capacity, innovation. These are really important words to social scientists, but I'm really tricked up in trying to work out what are the indicators that we use to measure them consistently across a whole range of different investment. So how do we set realistic monitoring frameworks that really does best utilise the capacity and capability of all of these different stakeholders? The delivery partners where the money's being channeled through, the landholders and industry have got a critical part in all of this. First Nations organisations, private businesses, research organisations, general citizens under the citizen science banner. And how do we actually look at how do we use them best? What are their best roles and capabilities and responsibilities for collecting and sharing and interpreting data? And what's the right scale? What's the right scale in terms of project size, in terms of time frame, as to who should be collecting what? What's really achievable for a landowner to collect and report on? What's achievable for a delivery partner who at the end of the life of that project is moving on to perhaps a different project, but there's still questions to be answered. So who's going to do that? So I guess being a bit provocative and a bit challenging in a group like this is it possible, and please let's talk about how, can we achieve a single whole of reef coordinated monitoring and evaluation framework and the detailed plan that sits with it for water quality projects and programs that really does help us build that collective confidence when we look across multiple projects? And I don't want to take away any of the work that's already sitting there in all of the MERI plans and program logics that all of these projects have. It's just the challenge when you start to look at 100 of those different plans and outcomes and indicators that really makes you ask some of these questions. So some of the things that I'm really interested to see whether we can improve on over time is having that agreed language, or at least a minimum understanding and guidelines on what's the language we're using: abatement, reduction, pollution, capacity, capability. What are the measures for those that we can agree on, that we can actually work towards? What are the indicators? What are those individual metrics and parameters that we might have agreed consensus and understanding that we can at least start with those for some of these key evaluation questions? Can we rethink some of these roles and responsibilities so the best capabilities are going towards the best work to be done? And can it be mutually beneficial? One of the findings of a lot of this work has been that a lot of delivery partners see no benefit in doing this. They're reporting, it disappears, they're doing it because it's a condition. But really, can we strive for this information to be more mutually beneficial to all the partners involved in collecting, reporting, interpreting? And again, how do we really think about these different levels of types of projects? Because I know it's complex. There's different maturity, there's research projects, there's on-ground projects, there's practice change projects, there's landscape repair. But can we actually think about the different needs of those while having some common elements? And wouldn't it be nice if I actually knew where to find all of this data at the end of the day? And so I will leave it with hoping that if we all kind of ask the question, we can kind of all share that answer as well. So thank you. And I'll hang around because I really do want answers to this question.